Hey guys, it's Sarah here from Reborn Dolls by Sarah, and today I have a really special video for you all. I'm going to be weighting little Ashton Grey, the non-binary kit I have made from the Avelee sculpt, sculpted by Tiffany Campbell. So I've got my bag of stuffing here, my whole bag of tricks in here, including a scale and some glass beads, and we're going to assemble this baby realistically. I've created a spreadsheet to do this where I kind of documented the average sizes of preemies, newborns, 1 month olds, and 3 month olds, because that's kind of the age that we typically do as reborns. And then from there, I researched what proportion was weighted in the head, the arms, the legs, and the torso, and I've come up with kind of a formula on how to weight them. I've taken off a pound because you've probably heard other artists say this too. Dead weight weighs more than real weight, so when it comes to reborn dolls, you want to make them a bit lighter than what the average would be so that they don't feel super duper heavy. So once you've got all those measurements in pounds, you put them into ounces, and you can take it from there. So I want their head to weigh 24 ounces or slightly less. So first I'm going to weigh the vinyl by itself, and it is 9.3 ounces. So I'm going to subtract that from 24 ounces and see what we need to stuff it with. And that is 14.7 ounces that we need to put in this baby's head. And I have to keep into consideration, keep in mind that they're also going to have some polyfill in there, which does weigh a little bit of, does add a little bit of weight. So we're going to want to put a little bit less than that in the glass beads. So now you're going to need a scale of some sort. I like to use a little kitchen scale and some premium glass beads. These are the ones that are a bit larger in terms of glass beads. I got them from First and Crafts, and you're going to need at least one nylon to start with the head. I got these nylons from Amazon, and I like them because they're pretty thick and the beads don't bleed through. So next I'm going to tire out my scale with the cup on there. This is an older scale from Avon back in the day, so sometimes I've got to be a little bit harsh with it to get it to listen to me. Alright, that's 13.5, which is pretty much perfect for what we want because, again, we're going to be adding some polyfill to the head, so we don't want to overweight it. Then to transfer it over, I just put the nylon on top. It's a really long nylon. And I like to keep it loose at first because when I insert it in the head, if I tied it really tightly like this, I probably wouldn't fit it through the neck. So we're going to keep it nice and long and loose. And I want to put most of the weight in the front of their face because I actually like when the baby's face is floppy, yes, but I want it to flop forward into their little chest. I don't want it to crank backwards and look like their neck's about to snap off. That's kind of one of my pet peeves about reborns. And then when you place them in their furniture or something like that, they don't look real when their necks are cranking back like that. But when you put the weight in the front, you still do get that heavy, needs to be supported head. It's just that it falls forward instead of backwards, and it looks more natural when they're placed. So there's the nylon sock at the front of their face, and now I'm going to fill the rest of the head with polyfill. Can't forget the baby powder scented wafer. This is one of my trades. I love the way that it smells, and I always like to put one right on top of that nylon before I put any polyfill. So that way it's not actually touching the vinyl, it's just touching weighting material, and because it has some oil on it to get the scent to stay there, I don't want that oil getting onto the vinyl. So I'm going to put it between the nylon sock and this polyfill, and that way nothing can ever happen. Alright, so I'm just going to go up to the top and back as much as I can first, and once that's all filled we can move to the front. So I'm pretty much going to stuff it a lot. Because if somebody squeezes the head on a real baby, it's going to be really hard. So we kind of want the same thing for our reborn doll. I've seen other reborn artists use poly pellets, I think they're called, for weighting. I don't really like how much they weigh. They're pretty light to me. So because of that, that's why I chose to go with the glass beads instead. This bag of polyfill I actually got from Amazon. It's 3 pounds, so they vacuum sealed it in order to get it to fit in that bag. So we have to fluff it back up like you would a pillow before we insert it so that it actually adds some volume instead of being vacuum sealed into a tight little ball. But yeah, I think it's best to use glass beads. They also feel realistic. Like if someone were to squeeze the head here, it's going to feel more realistic than some little beads getting shaken around in there. Always make sure your artist is using glass beads, because if they're using something like, I've heard about artists using fish tank sand, and something like that could be troublesome because you could get some mold inside the head. Or if they're using like a really fine sand, it could fall out of the stocking and then make its way into the cloth body, and then ultimately just make the doll feel not that realistic. So always ask, what kind of glass beads do you use? Where did you get them? You want them to be a certain grit, which I can let you guys know if you're super interested in that. But you just basically don't want them to be fine glass beads when they're going into a nylon. And they also, those kind of beads don't weigh as much. And I know that because I use them for something on the Reborns. So keep watching and you'll find out how I use them. Alright, so little Ashton Grey's head has been stuffed, weighted, and scented. So let's take another weight measurement and see where we're at. So 23.7 ounces, pretty close to 24, and I'm actually going to leave it that way because when we get to the arms, I'm going to add a little bit more weight. And so to make it all balanced and still make them weigh 7 pounds, we're going to leave it just where it is. On to the body. So for the torso, we want it to weigh 48.96 ounces. So I divided by that in thirds and got 16.5 for the chest, and we will put 32.5 in the bottom of the torso. I've checked the cloth body and it only weighs 0.9 ounces with the zip ties already on there, so I'm not going to subtract much off of those weight measurements. So again, we're going to need our nylon sock, and I'm actually going to use the entire length of this time, our weight scale, and some glass beads. Now this is for the bottom. We want, I'm just checking my cheat sheet here, 32.5 ounces, so that's going to be probably a little bit more than this Tim Hortons cup. All right, let's top that up. So we've got 23. I'm going to measure the rest as it's already sitting on the scale since we have a bit more to get to. So that's 23. We want it to be 32.5. What are we getting to here? 32.5. All right, 32.3. So we're going to stop right there. So this part is going to go in the bottom of the Reborn doll, just above the butt. We're going to put some polyfill down first and then place this for some weight. I already have zip ties in this little body because I put them together when they first arrived to see what size they were. That way I could tell Mom and she could start shopping if she wanted to. And so that I know too what kind of clothing I'm going to need, because I always send my babies home with a pair of pajamas and an outfit. So I like to make the bum a little bit round. So I've taken 2 big pieces of polyfill and I'm shaping them into the butt to give it a little butt look. Pretty cute. And then I'll put a little bit in the front actually before I put the beads in. All right, to get this big long cloth in the body, I have lengthened it out because it was pretty full before. So I'm gonna add it in slowly. That way it falls exactly where we want. It's kind of funny looking because it looks like a snake. All right, and I can use this to make sure that everything's even. And I want most of it to be pointing towards the belly because this is kind of going to be their belly and the bulk of where their weight is coming from. So I'm going to make sure it falls nicely. And then we're going to put some polyfill in the back between the body and the nylon full of glass beads so that Mom doesn't feel that. Although it is pretty soft, but we want to feel cloth. All right, so now I'm going to stuff a little bit more because the next thing we're going to do is put in the weight for the top. So I'm going to stuff from here to here. And what that means is I'm going to tie this off at the bottom and then tie it again where I'm going to put the weight in for the chest and then tie it a third time. That way I can use the entire length of the sock. So I'm going to reach down and see I can still reach the top of the glass beads there. So I'm going to tie a knot off to keep that separate. And then we're going to fill the rest until we get to the chest area. Okay, I've stuffed the rest with the polyfill, and now is the time I'm going to put in a second baby powder scented wafer in the front of the chest. And again, I'm putting it between the polyfill and the glass beads. That way it's not actually touching the cloth body, because again, it does have some oil on it for the scent, and I don't want that to ever come off onto the cloth body. I'm going to put some more polyfill between it, just to make sure that it's protected. I'll put a little bit more polyfill between the scent packet and the cloth body, just in case. All right, and now we're ready for the top half. So right here, I'm going to do a little knot, because that's where the top half of the chest is going to sit. So for the top half of the chest, I want 16.5 ounces because the bottom is 32.5. Altogether, that makes 48, and that is on target for us to make this baby weigh about 6 pounds, which is 7.2 pounds in dead weight. 16.9, so just dump a little back out. And these always come in pounds, so typically on each baby you're going to use about 5 or 6 pounds in glass beads, and the rest will be polyfill. Okay, so now I'm going to add this to the top part. I'm going to use my funnel. And if it's seeming like it's too much, don't worry about it. Just use your own judgment and leave some out, because right there I could tell that it was going to be a little too heavy for them. So I'm going to just leave it right there. And now, because I've separated them, I've got some bend. So we're going to get that floppy newborn feel that we all love and want to cuddle. And it's going to feel really realistic, because this baby is 20, I believe 20 inches. Yeah, 20 inches long. And whether it was a girl or a boy, actually, it would be a 1-month-old, just based on that. So it should weigh actually quite a bit more than what we're doing here, but because it's dead weight, we're going to keep it nice and newborny size. There we go. All right, before I attach the head, I just want to put a little bit more stuffing between the glass beads and the head, so that in case they fall down, the head's not too floppy, because that recently happened to one of the dolls I made. But luckily it was my friend's daughter, so she brought her over and I just restuffed the baby, but I learned from my lesson, so we're going to add a little bit more at the top here. There, that's looking good. All right, so from all angles, we got our little tushy there that we wanted to see, which is realistic. We've got a little bit of a belly there from the glass beads. It's definitely feeling like a good amount. It's got some movement. So now we're ready to add on the limbs and the head. For the limbs, I like to use a different type of glass bead. I like to use what is called the fine glass beads. So these ones are almost like powder. They're a lot less expensive than the heavier glass beads, but what I really like about them is that because they're so fine, when you use them in the limbs, if you give them a squish, they feel so realistic. So that's what we're going to use for the hands and the feet. So remember at the beginning I said it was okay if we underweighed some of the items because we're going to make it up in the limbs. The reason I say that is because they are supposed to be 2.88 ounces each if they were a real baby, and they're actually 3.1. And that's another reason why I like to use the fine glass beads in the hands, so they're not overweighting them and making them feel unrealistic. So for the arms, we're not going to pay any attention to the weight. What we're going to do is fill up the hand and a little bit of the wrist. We don't want to put too much because it will add too much weight. Actually, I've put it up to here and it feels pretty good. And see, you can even see in the video that lovely little squish there. We like that material, so we're going to leave it. So now, to top it up, I'm just going to put some polyfill in the rest of the limb. And you probably could put the entire, put fine glass beads in the entire limb. I just worried that depending on the baby, it could be a little bit too heavy. Now when it comes to the legs, we will have enough room to add a bit more glass beads because they are not weighing over as soon as we start with them. There we go. Now the arm's got a good squish too, very realistic. Let's do the other arm. So I'm just going ahead and doing the second arm now. I've already added my glass beads up to the elbow again. The only thing you do want to measure is just to make sure that the two arms weigh roughly the same amount.
And when he stood over you, you touched
There we go. And both of these weigh 5.9. Now the leg weighs 4.7 and we want it to weigh 9.6. So we've got a little bit more wiggle room with the legs. So again, we're going to put some fine glass beads, probably up to the knee on these ones. And since every baby is different, I'm going to weigh them as soon as I've done that to see what we're working with.
You weren't already in penthouse 3 when you got that text?
Okay, we're at 12, so I'm going to remove a little bit of the glass beads. It's 10.
Before Johnny walked into that penthouse.
9.3. So add a touch back in there.
I will also represent to you, Miss
9.5. So all we're going to do now is just add a little bit of polyfill to the rest of the leg to fill it up. And I want to make sure this one's also 9.3 before I put polyfill in and end up having to adjust one. 8.6.
No.
9.4. I love putting the glass beads in the bottom of the feet too because it kind of gives them like a little weight, so it feels like you're picking up a baby with limbs when you pick them up. Just grabbing some more polyfill. Now once these are stuffed, the glass beads are not going to come out. I've never experienced that before. But you can buy plugs to put on the ends of the limbs if you want to. I just found that I don't mind if the customer takes off a limb and wants to see what materials I've used. I'm very proud of the materials I've used. I don't cut corners or cheap out on anything. So I feel like just leaving the plugs out, it just gives them a chance to do that. And I've actually even seen one reborner, her name's Kim from Custom Doll Baby. She actually would go one step further and put the plug in and hot glue it shut. And again, like I said, I don't mind if somebody wants to see what materials I've used. So I like to leave it easy and easily accessible and open. So I'm quite proud of the products I use. I'm from Canada, so I source my fine glass beads from Princess Auto. And like I said, the glass beads I get from Amazon. There's still a little bit more space there, so I'm going to add a bit more polyfill there. Always fluff it up so that you get more volume out of it, and then pack it so that if anything it takes on the shape of the limb and not the big bag that it was vacuum sealed into. There we go. 2 legs are done. Now time to assemble. I did end up removing the zip ties because I wanted to show everybody how I do that, and I thought if they were already in, I wouldn't get a chance to do that. So let's put in some zip ties. I like to use the shorter ones for the arms. There's 2 sizes you can get. You can get the long or the short, and it really doesn't matter. They're the same price. It's just that with the short, you're going to have less waste because you're not going to trim off all that excess. So make sure the flat side is angled where you want it to connect, and you'll be able to see that when you've got them in your hands. You're going to know which way you have to do it. So I'm just going to do enough to tighten it and then leave it there. That way I can put the limb on. And a nice long one for the legs.
Please do, yes. In your experience, do those photos normally sit on the bed?
Can you hear in the background? I'm watching the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Is anyone else watching that? You should have seen earlier when it was a live feed how the comments were blowing up the video. It was like, it was crazy. I couldn't even believe it. So I just noticed that there's a little bit of space down here, so I'm just going to top this up before we put the legs on. All right, so always double check when you're doing the leg that you've got the right side. So I've got the left leg, left side. So you're just going to, let's see if I can get the camera closer. So there's a little ring here, as you can see. So you're going to put that part inside the cloth body, like so. And while I'm holding it, I'm going to tighten the zip tie. Now, you have to be careful with this. You want to tighten it enough that the limb doesn't fall off, but you also need enough wiggle room so that the limb is mobile, because if you put it too tight, it won't move. So here I think the limb won't fall off, and we've still got some movement. So that's where I'm going to leave it. And let's do the other leg. And by the way, when I cut the very last zip tie, that's the time I write down that the baby was born at, so that if it asks on a birth certificate, I can put it on there. The new ones I got don't ask. They're really cute. Peter Rabbit ones, but they don't have a birth time on them, unfortunately. All right, let's sit them up and do the arms. So right arm, and I'm making sure the zip tie is all the way to the end of the cloth body so that it doesn't get all smushed up and prevent the arm from moving. So we've got some good movement there. And it's tight, so that's exactly what we want. This is the last arm, and then the head. Sometimes with the head, I put it on and then I take it off and I have to redo it because when you hold the baby, things aren't really falling right in the chest or the belly. So that happens. If it happens to you, you're not the only one. So with the last zip tie, try to put it on as loose as you can in case you have to take the head off a million times. Otherwise, you're going to fly through 10 different zip ties and it'll be time consuming. Not to mention costly. Okay, so I'm going to do one more check of the weighting before I put the head on. I think that's really good. Okay, I'm going to, actually no, I'm going to keep them sitting up for this part. And you can see with the legs, they're front loading legs, so they're not really meant to sit. But then again, neither is a 1 month old, so they look kind of silly when they're sitting, but that's normal for a 1 month old because they're not supposed to sit up anyways. All right, so again, I'm going to put the head on and just hold it with my fingers while I do up the necktie. Can't do it too tight, otherwise the head will not move, but we want them to be able to look side to side.
What is this a picture of?
Okay, so it's able to move and it's tight enough so that it won't fall off. I'm just going to carefully check the weight again, make sure it feels good, and it does. Aww, they are so sweet, you guys. Little bow legs. What a cutie patootie. They feel pretty great, so time to snip off the zip ties. So we'll start with the legs. These are just nail cuticle scissors or baby nail clippers if you call them that. Whenever you're purchasing them, they can be called both things. And I like them because they've got a flat end, so they get in there nice and close, and that way there's no zip tie hanging off that can scratch anybody. I'm checking the tightness as I go through. Zip tie just went flying. Okay, this is the moment where they're about to be born. So I gotta check my watch. It's 8:52. And it's still 8:52. Welcome to the world, little Ashton Grey. What a beautiful little baby. Okay, the last step is to see what this little babe weighs all together. And they weigh 6.3 pounds, which is perfect. Perfect for their age and perfect for the dead weight. So they've got a floppy head and they just feel like a real baby. I can't wait to get them dressed and see what they look like all dressed up. So tomorrow will be the photo shoot. All right, let's see if Ashton fits into this newborn outfit that I got from Pat Pat. Their clothes tend to be huge. When it came, I was like, ugh, this is not newborn. This is size 0 to 3. But Ashton is 20 inches long, and because their legs are pretty much straight, they are a very tall baby. And yes, I gave them a pillow. Now that they're alive, I can't just let them lie on a flat surface that's not comfortable. I spoil my babies a little bit. It's actually looking like it's going to fit, which would be so perfect because this little baby is non-binary. Mom wants to be able to dress them as a boy sometimes and a girl sometimes, which, I mean, why not? Then you don't have to buy 2 babies. You just have 1, right? And when you want to dress it in little girls' outfits, you can dress it in little girls' outfits. And when you want to dress them in little boys' outfits, you can do that too. This one's perfect because, to me, it's unisex and it's so cute. It's really soft too. oops, I forgot to put their diaper on. But I think it's gonna still fit with the diaper because it's actually a bit loose. So if anything, the diaper will make it fit even better. And it did say newborn. If you're gonna order from Pat, they have awesome stuff. It's super inexpensive. It didn't take that long to get here, if I remember correctly, maybe 3 weeks or so. And that was around Christmas time. So I thought that was pretty good. I just wanted to make sure all the buttons were lined up. Oh my God. They are so cute, you guys. Mom wanted the baby to be not pale, but like not very dramatic in the way of the lip color and skin tone and all that. Not much newborn details. And it is a baby that would be about a month old, so that makes sense. And I think this outfit is just perfect for them. See you guys tomorrow.